Good morning and welcome to The Big Issue. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo, your regular host, and I'm doing the show this morning with Reverend Johnny Tim Forger, Member of Parliament for Assin South Constituency, Sydney Caseley Hayford, financial analyst, very early this morning, Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa, Toma Mehe, Editor of the Gold Street Business, and Nikpapu Samuado, a private legal practitioner and a member of the NDC. And on the table this morning, we are discussing the formation of an FX Development Committee by the Ministry of Finance to try and help deal with Ghana's FX issues. We'll also continue the show with a conversation on the compilation of a new voters register, one that has brought so much disagreement into the political space, and won the conversation with the corruption index. Ghana maintaining its position from 2018, although it's not really a position we want to maintain. It's a table you want to do well on. 41 points is not something that you can be really happy about, but we'll discuss the pros and cons of that particular situation. If you want to share your thoughts with us on the show, you can do so via WhatsApp, +233 549 986 996, +233 549 986 996, or +233 550 585 832. For those of you who prefer Twitter, you can find us on at Citi973. The hashtag is The Big Issue, or you can find me on at East Sportsman. Same hashtag, The Big Issue. I will gladly read your comments. So let me hear from Nikpaku Samuado, first on the FX Development Committee. And as usual, Sydney Caseley Hayford wraps up our conversations on money. Nikpaku, FX Development Committee, for or against?
Clearly, it's an interesting step. I would say it's an interesting step.
Okay.
You see, I go back to Dr. Baumia's, His Excellency the Vice President's famous quote that when the fundamentals of the economy are weak, your forex tables and depreciations and your forex situation will expose you. So then the logic is that if your forex is depreciation or is depreciating at a very fast rate, it means that your fundamentals are weak. And so that is where he led a famous lecture, and criticized the then NDC's economic management team for being very lackadaisical and lax in its management of the economy. He even followed up with another famous quote at the MPP delegates conference by mentioning eloquently in the first 100 days of the NPP government the amazing economic management team that the MPP had, and then teased the NDC by saying that he cannot even remember who the members of the economic management team of the NDC were and where are they. And then the famous, we have the men. It is quite interesting that 3 years down the line, there has been the recognition of the fact that, or it has dawned on our esteemed Vice President and the economic management team that sometimes it is not about the propaganda that you do when you are in opposition or when you are aspiring to get into government. But when the reality of the money, I'm coming. I didn't. I never uttered the word. You know, when he spoke, I said nothing.
Don't worry, I'll handle that. Let him go. I'll give you a rebuttal.
You see, you can't have a rebuttal. I want them to rebut.
Go on.
It's when you are in opposition and you have the opportunity of doing the propaganda that you have, because you've never tasted the management of the economy. And as the venerable late Vice President said, there's a difference between, that's Vice President Ibisata, there's a difference between book theory of the management of economics and the practical management of economics. When you land in the hot seat, then you begin to realize that you need ideas outside what you think you already know in order to manage the economy. I think it was a very humbling experience for the finance minister when he said in Parliament that government had, in the crisis when the forex situation became very bad, during a particular period, I believe last year, that he came to Parliament to announce that the government had decided to form a committee. That's the president had directed a bipartisan committee to look into the issue of what it is that makes our economy so vulnerable to external shocks and to make it almost like we never seem to rather come to say that the cedi has appreciated and is continuing to appreciate. But it has now become an accepted norm that every year we rather measure whose government did better when it comes to the depreciation of the cedi. It's a very sad commentary as a country that we compare records as to whose government did better when it comes to managing the depreciation of the cedi, as opposed to where other countries would look at the fact that they have a budget surplus and who rather takes credit for budget surpluses and the fact that the economy is running better. But all in all, as a nationalist, that's a patriot, I think that it is good that on certain issues we come together as a country to admit the fact that there are certain issues that must be dealt with in a nationalistic way. We should have a common agenda as to how to radically change the fundamentals of our economy if we are going to address the issue of these forex, shocks and how they clearly affect our balance of payments issues and our import cover and all those things. It's clear that we don't produce enough. Basically, we started this campaign on the issue of rice. Mm-hmm. We start well, and then for some reason, if it is some lobbyists or some, before we realize, we'll start retarding slowly.
It all comes down to political will.
Yeah, that's the thing. You see, so when on the show, I was surprised that the Minister of Agri recently, when he gave a speech, did not even recognize the lead role that CTFM played when it came to. He did not. I listened. I listened to that. I listened to that speech. The first person he gave credit to was the president, which was completely out of place.
Problem is
hold on. No.
Because the president himself has admitted and given credit to his due.
You see, the thing is this: if you don't have a politician, or if you don't have politicians who are prepared to, number one, be honest about the facts and decide that, look, if there's a simple situation where there's the issue of rice, which we all agree, if we hit with a government policy and intervention, can radically reduce our import situation when it comes to rice. We come together with a common front and take out the politics. And it shows from leadership. So when you come in and you say that, look, this effort was led by a private citizen who I believe has done well, and I want to support him. I'm giving these directives. I'm not just interested in the nice words, look, I've directed. We are looking at results. How many schools have been supplied with Ghana, the Ghana rice? Have the farmers been paid? How were they paid? How much are they receiving? These are things that are verifiable. The buffer stock company, how much Ghana rice are they taking? So that we are clear in our minds that just as you are able to follow your war on indiscipline, how much is being brought into the coffers of state, we should be able to find out how much the farmers are earning as a result of this intervention. Then we move on to other areas. Sugar.
Let him go.
You can.
I promise you, I'll give him an update on rice.
Oh, okay, no problem. That's beautiful. I want to see a concerted effort at addressing some of the easy things that I think are low-hanging fruits that we can easily see are some of the things that are affecting our forex position. If we're able to address some of those import issues, chicken, name them, the things that we spend money on, pharmaceuticals that we can produce in this country, the government's drive on the 1D, 1F, how successful has it been? I'm not talking about the rebranding of existing factories. I'm talking about factories that are actually in existence, that are starting from the grassroots. Kwame Nkrumah's factories that have all, been lying idle. We have this one in Kumasi, the shoe sandal making factory. What have we done? What has been the intervention? Have our soldiers and policemen been supplied with shoes from that factory? These are things that we can verify. If there are direct government directives backed by action, I am sure that some of our forex issues would not need a 40-man committee to address. But
wrap up for me.
Yeah, but I think that by and large, it's an admission of the failure of this government to address an issue that they thought in opposition was all about mismanagement of the economy.
Okay.
Now that they've come to the realization that we need all hands on deck, perhaps it is not too late that if the 40 plus, member committee decide not to take any per diem, but voluntarily sit and discuss these matters, maybe they may come up with some brilliant ideas. But where I sit, if you ask any class 6 people or GSS people, what are the reasons why Ghana has a high import dependency syndrome, as I'll call it, he or she should be able to tell you off the head what our problems are. And so if we want to address them, maybe we should go the Nigerian route. Even though I used not to be in favor of closing our borders when it comes to the issue. But it seems sometimes, unless you take radical measures, we will not be able to see any development in respect of that.
Thank you, Nico. Rev, 1 minute. 1 minute before I go to Citi.
Nick calls himself a patriot. I didn't know he has crossed carpet to join us.
Oh, come on.
Welcome you, whatever you decide to do so. But I must express my disappointment at the note upon which Nee started and then premised his argument, and even where he landed. At the time where we're looking...
It is how he wants to make his argument.
But it's unfortunate. At the time when we are looking at maximizing opportunities in the AFTA, the free trade area, African free trade area, and opportunities where we can maximize, even to have positive impact on our currency, we are looking at closing borders. I mean, all these consuming locally produced products and all the very basic fundamental ideas that Nee has just proffered here were still valid in the 8 years rule of the NDC, but we saw the performance of the city.
We are not in power.
When we get to... But we know that the records are there. And I'm glad that you point out that it will be mediocre to want to even debate under whose regime the city depreciated more, which is
so let's
obvious.
not go there.
Yes, so let's not go there. So let us support a very concerted effort, an effort that is going to stabilize not MPP cedi, that is not going to stabilize not CPP cedi, that is going to stabilize not NDC cedi, but Ghana cedi. Okay. That's certain things you don't even want to bring politics in there.
Let me just state one minute.
Progressively going forward. And also there were some contradictory comments in regards to political will and government-led initiatives. It's not every initiative that necessarily the government ought to lead. For instance, the Citi TV campaign on the consumption of local rice, which Nee rightly even had a concern, let me put it that way, concern that Citi TV's name was not mentioned first but second, and why the president's name was mentioned first. So you see, the point here is we must acknowledge where private citizens and CSOs and media bodies come together to initiate very important policies that the whole nation needs to rally against. If the president goes ahead to show full commitment, full political will to support and even mandate agencies and institutions to support same is a step in the right direction, which should not be run down by propaganda.
Points well made,
some of these, but lastly, I think that
I need to go to Sydney.
This platform, there are certain propaganda that should not be indulged. And I'm surprised.
Nobody's endorsing.
I'm surprised.
You see, there's one.
Leave the moderation to me.
Yes, there's one. Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute in reaction to just 1 minute.
I was telling Sydney.
The Yoko.
Yes, but I'm saying leave the moderation to me.
The government should have its eye on the fact that there's a current serious debate between Anglophone and Francophone countries in respect of the
ECO, yes.
And
but that is not agenda on the table.
No,
right
I understand.
now.
No, I'm saying that these are things that eventually are going to have an effect on your currency. And so there are not only external issues that the government must have its eye on, and for which it needs the national outlook in terms of both NDC and MPP jointly having a position on some of these things, you understand? But also the fact that if you look at this, your attempt at always hitting at the NDC for alleged mismanagement of the economy and praising yourself in the face of IMF outlooks which are not favorable in terms of our import cover. No, recently,
okay.
you
I'm going to hold the two of you.
You didn't
the
see
Moody ratings. Have you just read the ratings?
Reverend Timfojo and me, I'll halt you right there. Let me go to Sydney Kesley here to wrap up this conversation for me, and then we can talk about the voters register. Sydney, what are your thoughts on this? A lot of people in your space, experienced financial analysts, experienced bankers, economists, almost all of them are saying no to this. PNM says no. Gachi says no. Corte says no. Everybody says no. What does Kisleyford say?
Shall I help you with the rice thing first?
No.
Before we get into it.
No, I want you to stay on
if
track.
you are being paid well,
stay on track for me.
I hope that
being paid well.
He's a rice farmer.
He's a rice farmer. So,
yeah.
So the local rice farmers are being paid.
It's beside the issue.
I'm not a rice farmer. I'm a rice miller.
Okay.
Different,
like I'm saying,
the different thing.
I want us to stay on the
topic. I'll be on topic.
Yes.
I very quickly. What maybe it's important to know at this time of the year, okay, with the harmattan that has been raging for a few weeks, we don't see much of the harmattan here down south, but up north, very, very severe. There is virtually no rice available. Okay. All the rice you can get on the market is broken rice, and when we have broken rice, milling it, what you get are the little chunks, which are more for umortu and other things else, which is sold more in the local market. I am on a technical committee for rice marketing and development, together with the Ministry of Agriculture and a few other players in the market. And government's aim of cutting the importation of rice by 2022 is what has been occupying us. If we can do it, we can save something close to $1 billion a month in imports. So we are dealing with several issues along the chain of delivery of rice to the market, from production to processing to distribution to sales. So contrary to what Ni knows, the campaign has not stopped. The campaign is still there. A lot of the rice that is being produced is sold to the buffer stock. They are the biggest buyers of rice.
The president did order that they buy all the rice.
They are buying, but you can't buy bad rice.
That's true.
Okay, so you buy rice that you can actually feed students with. So under the school feeding program and under the buffer stock storage program, there's a lot of rice being traded and being bought. Not only that, but the Ghana Commodities Exchange has also now included paddy rice on their list of commodities to be traded. And that's a major development, because now we expect that they will buy a lot of bulk, store it, and as the months go by, as the rice season diminishes, because right now rice farmers are starting to plow their land, getting ready to plant, and they'll be harvesting somewhere around the middle of the year, or they'll start. Some of the early ones will start. Those who are doing irrigation will harvest twice, and we will sustain the rice production. And this has been purely a government initiative which they put into place. And the committee is strong. It has various partners from the various parts of the production of rice. So there's a lot going on in rice, and there's a huge determination to cut the importation of rice.
Okay, points made. Let's talk FX.
Then following on from rice, you are right. We need to cut importation of sugar. That's another problem. We need to cut the importation of soya beans. Right. We need to cut the importation of bringing in the poultry parts. The poultry industry has to kick back in. And all of these things, I know, are on the agenda with the minister. I have the minister's ear, and luckily we do discuss all of this, because agriculture has got to be the anchor for our industry development. So hopefully it will all come, but it cannot come overnight. It'll take some time. We need to produce about 1.2 million metric tons of rice.
Are we still on rice?
No, I'm just concluding. So in order to get there, you've got to pick up the production so you can do the milling and the delivery. So it'll happen. It will get there. And that's part of the whole foreign exchange management thing. You see? If we can succeed in cutting particularly anything that we can produce here in terms of agriculture and food, if we can stop importing any of that, you save a significant chunk of foreign exchange into the marketplace. Now, you remember when we brought up this foreign exchange things some time ago, we did research a little. I think you did a quick search, and we came to the conclusion that the biggest chunk of foreign exchange demand as a block was coming from second-hand car dealers.
Yes.
You remember?
Yes.
We came to about 30, 31, 32%.
Yes.
Of the chunk of foreign exchange in second-hand car dealers.
Yes.
If you look around the city, the big cities, Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi, you will see tons and tons of second-hand cars sitting around, nobody buying, yet they keep importing. So, looking at that, you see that there's a little bit of a scam going on, where it's purely a foreign exchange deal arrangement, which seems to be coming, into the market from second-hand car dealers. Now, that is something that we can cut, and there has to be some decisive effort to cut it.
You are starting to sound like Nipapo then, because if you go to Nigeria, for instance, they've basically deterred people from buying second-hand cars.
And I don't disagree with that. I think we should. I would prefer that we have assembly plants here where we can actually assemble some cars rather than importing all the time. I would support Kantanka at any time for doing what he's doing so we can have it. Nigeria has assembly plants for Peugeot and for Volkswagen as well. They have it. In South Africa, they are assembling BMWs, they are assembling, I think they do some Toyota and stuff like that. That's what we should be doing, because you're not going to be able to manufacture or build a car in Ghana yet. You still need a lot more, youthful engineers and financing.
But the president has announced 3 of such. I think we're expecting Nissan, we're expecting Renault, we're expecting a few others.
Yes, and they will come. And when they come, the question will be, do you have the manpower to support it? Yes. At one point, we had Coast Motors, which was doing VW assembly in this country. We had new plants. So we do have some skill in the system, even though it's been quite a while. Those young persons who were working on that at the time now must be, octogenarians if we are not careful. But we can generate the expertise to do all of these things. Question you have to ask yourself, is that where our energies should go? Or is it going to be better just to import the cars and get our people to do other productive, work in the industries? So the thinking process is there. I'm not the only person to be thinking like this. There are many others who have thought about this and proposed lots of solutions. But the question you asked me from the very beginning, what do I think about the way, about this exchange rate? Look, from my lips to Ken Ofori-Attah's ears and to anybody else who's in charge of this, Baumia, this is a total waste of time and money. Complete waste of time and money. It is totally unnecessary. The persons and the institution responsible for managing the foreign exchange is the Bank of Ghana. And that's what you should allow them to do.
Did you listen to Thomas?
I heard everything.
For what?
I heard everything that Thomas said. Let me give you my perspective. Okay?
Nipapo, please let him focus.
My perspective is simple. There are clear institutions that exist who have the knowledge and the data and the information to be able to provide the solution to this problem. And the Bank of Ghana has all access to everybody. You need customs, you need GRA, you need the Guta.
Absolutely.
And a few bodies. You need only about 5 or 6 bodies. And they will provide you all the information that you want. And besides, the problem of the foreign exchange, look, it has become a political thing. Ni's passion at the beginning of his discussion was, first of all, to take a quote from a political platform.
Which really hurts them.
Okay? He took a quote from a political platform, which seems to preoccupy, which preoccupied him, at the time. All this thing about let's come together as MPP and NDC and try and come up with a common platform body that will solve the problem, that's a waste of time. Nobody will do that. MPP will not do it. NDC will not do it. They've never done it traditionally, and they won't do it tomorrow. So let's not even think that there is a solution in that direction. If there was, when they were in power, NDC, they could have reached out to the NPP and said, how do we fix this problem? Did they do it? They didn't. So why are they now thinking that NPP will do it? It won't happen. At the end of the day, the foreign exchange crisis is a supply and demand crisis. That's all it is. And you are not going to expect the currency to settle down when all you are doing is importing stuff. You cannot fix the currency depreciation. You have no control over it because our exchange rate regime is quite flexible and open. Anybody can exchange and can use their currency. You have a child in school. You are sending them to Harvard. You can take your money. You can go and buy foreign exchange, and you just move.
Yeah, just explain why it
Okay.
should be there.
Yeah. What is it, Tom? I'll give you a minute.
If, as you said, you can't fix the FX problem when you keep on importing, that means that the fix has to come at least in part from fiscal policy, because what you import or export, that is determined by fiscal policy, which is government.
Policy doesn't solve.
So you've
anything.
just explained why government should have the
Policy doesn't solve anything.
There
already exists policy on the currency. Bank of Ghana has that mandate, and it has
monetary. We're talking about how fiscal policy impacts on monetary.
The Bank of Ghana is also responsible.
It's a big impact.
The Bank of Ghana is responsible for the exchange rate management in the country.
Who's responsible for deciding what we can import or what we can't import?
See,
that is government policy.
Exactly. So that's why. And you agree it impacts. That is what will determine exchange rates.
Government risks its political future on what it restricts and what it allows. Because at the end of the day, if you
affect exchange rate, right?
Of course it will.
So what's wrong with government now setting committee when you just agreed that
it is a waste of time, because you have institutional bodies who are all doing a part of this already, and the government itself has an economic management team whose responsibility is led by Bawumia. The EMT is there to handle a situation like this.
Okay, that one.
But Thomas' point also. Thomas' point is
I can appreciate that statement. Really did harm to your party.
Thomas' point on that matter is these institutions that you talk about who have a role, and I asked him the same question, perhaps need to be put in the same room so that they can figure out how they are all linked, because at the moment everybody works in silos. So why not put everybody together?
They
don't work in silos. They don't work in silos. The governor, the central bank, reaches out to different institutions from time to time to get solutions. People even voluntarily call in and offer their ideas and their suggestions. I had a conversation with Kwame Pianim just a few days ago on this issue, and I was criticizing him for being quiet for so long. And we had a nice conversation, and he explained what he thought. And to a large extent, he and I were, agreed on what he was saying, and I have no qualms saying it here. I think we are wasting our time and our efforts, and I liked his tea analogy that we're going to be drinking tea. I agree. Look, we went and
hold on,
sat at St.
Hold on for me. Just speaking about tea, I just want to. I initially mentioned the names of the members of this committee. So if you check your screen, you will see the members of that FX committee, including Franklin Kujo. You can see Ken Oforiatta, Dr. Yao, Anum, Benjamin Komlakpodo, who has refused to join Patrick Nomo. Who refused? Benjamin Komlakpodo, whole Central MP. He said he was not told in good time. So yeah, basically these are the members. Sydney, you are wrapping up, and Franklin is also here, a member of the committee.
Yeah. What is knowing the names of the people on the committee going to do?
It just gives us a feel of their
if you give me his
backgrounds.
name, you have to tell me what his qualification is.
Yes, I did. I did mention
to be on
the backgrounds were all
the
there.
backgrounds.
Yes.
I think it also gives an indication of what the committee has been set up to do. The composition
It
gives
is not
us
going to
an
achieve
indication.
anything. If you set up a 38 member, you set up a 38 member committee, you might as well constitute it into a ministry.
No.
There are 38 people. There are 38 people.
Just one.
No, too much interference. Let me wrap up so you can come in if Godfrey so feels. This morning, Moody's have issued a report on Ghana's.
Yeah, Reverend was making a
rating
they have
On Ghana's
credit rating, and they are maintaining the B3 with a positive outlook. It was to be stable outlook. Now they are saying B3 positive outlook, and they've given their reasons very clearly, as they usually do. And key to the rating in there's the foreign exchange management, there's debt to GDP management, then there's the overall political stability issue. They don't even talk about corruption. But the outlook is positive and it's moving forward. And they are even speculating that if Ghana continues on this trajectory, they think that they will even review that differently as we go forward. This is a good sign of where we are heading. It's an excellent rendition of the government's achievement.
But see, I've always wanted to ask you this, though. Post The Big Short, and you know what I'm talking about. Do you trust ratings agencies?
I trust the Imani rating agency.
And I'm talking about, not Imani, I'm talking about ratings agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, Fitch. Do you trust them post The Big Short?
My background...
Because The Big Short proved that anybody can get access to them and get them to say what they want to say.
For a long time, okay, financial institutions and government management, particularly in the West, maybe not so much here, but in the West, has been guided by ratings agencies, think tanks, and opinions. That's it.
Okay.
Our failing in West Africa and in Africa generally is that we, maybe with the exception of South Africa, we have not clearly been able to create our ratings agencies and our opinions and sustain them year after year.
I've made
this point before, to make them credible. And I would rather rely on an Imani report, okay, rather than rely on a Moody's or an S&P report. Because I think we have the information here. And we can, if we drill down, we can get the answers. And when Moody's are coming or going to issue a report, they have agents here who they call. They have agents in Nigeria. They have agents in South Africa. They discuss it with them. All right? They don't come and station their own staff here in Africa and expect them to understand the dynamics of what we are achieving here. Okay? So for me, if we can get an indigenous institution or indigenous organization who will consistently give reports, that will be...
We have IFS and such likes who also
IFS is
these findings.
But IFS doesn't do credit
fiscal
ratings.
studies.
We have the department at Legon that does its own.
Sydney's position on this matter is long.
He says he prefers the local.
Yes, but he says there's been a lack of consistency.
That's because Moody's gets their information from them. All right.
So, but he said that a yearly outlook of what
it's a used to. I haven't seen one for a long time.
Oh, it does every year. It has its review of the economy.
And that is what we need And that is what we should be quoting, and that is
the
what we should
statistics.
stand on.
Thank you
but
very
they have
much, Sidney
politicized. They've so politicized it that as soon as it's a
well, Issa hasn't politicized it. It's the two political parties who have politicized
it is the
it.
political parties who have politicized Issa's report.
Yes.
And that's the same thing you get all the time. Okay? And if we can get away from that and take those reports and take those statements as not... when he issued his manifesto reports, when he does that and he proves it, the backlash he gets from the political parties, it's just ridiculous.
Okay.
His
Point
best
made.
friend is
Point
Kennedy
made.
Ajibo.
Gentlemen, point made. Let me come to
Very
Franklin Kujo. Franklin, I'll give you just 5 minutes on this. And that's simply because you are on the committee.
All right.
Now, perhaps you can clear up Thomas'
Any per diem.
issue about what exactly it is that you guys have been set up to, because he says it's useful so far as it is guided in a certain way.
Do they take per diems?
That is not a matter on the table. But I've also read a piece that says you should be kicked off the committee. Professor Gachi says they should kick you off the committee.
Well, Franklin should kick himself off the
Says
committee.
Imani, what are you doing there?
Franklin should kick himself off the
Kennedy
committee.
Ajibo to admit
He doesn't need
the
anybody to
advice,
kick him off.
advance reasons. Just
Well, it's there. I can read it for
well,
you. It doesn't really
first of
matter.
all, well, good morning.
I saw
And,
you there. I think you were looking nice.
Let me just say that it is perfectly understandable, the sneers, the jeers, the cynicism, the satirical commentary regarding the formation of a currency-related committee, simply because, as Sidney has said, it's been politicized, and for rightly so. So for me, I understand. But let me also clear quickly that it's an unremunerated committee, so nobody is being paid any certain allowance for doing that. But they gave me food, I'll eat. So let me just clear that. Look, I understand perfectly that the mandates of the government, which is largely fiscal, because we have, let's use the terms here. So the behavior of the government, whatever it does, policies, interventions, could negatively or positively affect monetary policy. So it is understandable that the Bank of Ghana, which has the powers to advise and sometimes intervene in the currency markets, should not be usurped, which is exactly what this committee is not going to do. I've learned many, many lessons, and I think that I can share some of these anecdotes. I understand perfectly. In fact, I met the Director of Development of the Central Bank of England not too long ago, and we had the same conversations. Why is it that you guys seem to have a totally independent view of your economy? Because the world looks up to you. He did say that London obviously is the commercial capital of the world, isn't it? And so a lot more investors, a lot more people who interface with global business tend to look up to the UK, and particularly so the Central Bank of England. So whatever they do must be above board, which means that the states should not intervene or should not somehow direct them. And he did say that, look, and then I asked him, what do you think we should do for our country? And it was perfectly spot on. Something they said, which I think everybody here knows, which is the moment the politician gets involved in the management of currencies, then you'd have a lot problems, right? So it is perfectly clear. But then he also did say that the behavior of governments would have an impact on how the Bank of England's, should I say, decisions are made. Mm-hmm. To the extent that the committee, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of England, now publishes its minutes, its meeting minutes, decisions unedited, and it's published. So that's the level of transparency that they have. Then I asked myself, why is it that here in this country, we have a situation where somehow the central bank, even though it has all these powers, rarely speaks, and you normally do not see some sort of activism, right? Maybe by the nature of the nature of their jobs, they are probably not supposed to be speaking all the time, but it matters. And let me refer to some conversations we had at another committee, which was formed under the Electoral administration. Sydney and myself were members of that inner committee. In fact, that committee was the most important committee, where the previous finance ministers, as well as the vice president, and seasoned experts were part of that committee. I won't mention the same
former governors, former finance ministers.
And you recall Sydney.
Yes,
I asked Wampa, why wouldn't you do anything about the currency? Because at the time the currency was in free fall. Then he said something that was profound. He said, I'm looking towards Setekbe. You would have thought that was probably, let me use the word silly, excuse my language, explanation. But he was speaking clearly on matters of policy, right? That even though he has the power to advise and somehow manage the currency issues, the behavior of the government, spearheaded by the finance ministry, would have had enormous impact and does have enormous impact on the decisions they make. So clearly, there must be the difference between the fiscal and the monetary. Once the behavior of fiscal agents are pariah to commonsensical, as it were, monetary policy, then clearly you would have these challenges that you are currently having. So then I asked myself, why would this committee be formed, for instance? And I thought that the committee was formed simply because there are agents whose actions, as a result of government directives, would have an impact on the city. Let me give you an example. So Senya Hosi, who is the CEO of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, is on the committee. But why is he be on the committee? Simply because his body and the activities of that body has significant impact on our petroleum, if you like, revenues, and indeed and of course in furtherance of their work. What it means is that it also has impact on the city. So depending on how government dictates certain policies, it would have an impact on their work. And he was part of a committee under the Electoral administration, and now, which saved the economy $1 billion. They were owed money, by the way, and these monies were being, as it were, recycled because the government did not have money. They met, and then they decided on a haircut, even though it had a negative impact on their bottom line. Somehow, they managed to save the economy $1 billion. So you'd ask, why would Gutha be there? Now, Gutha is a larger, well, of course, they import.
Everybody if there's a committee, Gutha should be there. Sydney has said Gutha is essential.
Understandable, right. So then you ask yourself, why are they there? Because clearly, by their activities, there's a lot of externalization of our foreign currency, right? But much more so when the government now wants to stabilize the currency, but at the same time wants to increase revenue, which would affect our forex, our reserves, and the government wakes up one day and decides that benchmark values at the ports would be reduced by 50% and 30% for certain types of goods. The government must be clear and must keep its eye on the ball to ensure that this directive is not extended to all goods, which seems to be happening currently, because the government then loses a lot of significant forex revenues, which would impact our reserves.
1 minute.
Now, so you ask yourself, why would all of this be formed? Because somehow there must be that feedback mechanism to a committee that looks at the ecosystem of currency flows to say, well, listen, be careful here, because this policy you have implemented could have significant impact on our forex. I can go on and on and on and on. Sometimes we tend to and it's true, we normally understand what really should be done about certain situations. And I'll use this last analogy. I recall during TechPest time, everybody talks about the wage bill, that the wage bill is too high, and that why would 600,000 workers take a significant chunk of our money? I think at the time it was about 12 billion Ghana cedis, which was significantly high. We all knew what should be done, right? Cut this, cut that, cut that, cut that, reduce the number of ministers and all of that. We say all of those. But when the committee was formed and I was invited to be part of it, when we started the work and interfaced with agencies, first of all, we realized that we needed to prune the subvented agencies because some of them were not really working. So that was easy. Checked out, kicked out quite a number. But then we started interfacing with some of the agencies, FDA, Ghana Standards Authority, even the universities at the time. Quite a number of conversations where they came justifying their expenditure plans, their projections that they gave for 2, 3, 4 years. And we surgically interrogated the figures and asked questions as to why wouldn't they be more effective if they started privatizing or commercializing their services. There were revelations. The government takes a chunk of their internally generated funds. What would be done? What would have happened if the ratios were swapped? That the government keeps, let's say, 20% or 30%, and they keep 70%. What impact it would have had? And there was just a lot of revelations where some of them had said, look, if we got that, would be generating a lot more money for the state than currently is the case. By the time the committee's work was done, after chugging off quite a number of them, some of the subvented agencies, the savings that were made were close to 200 million Ghana cedis. Now, you ask yourself, well, we all sat outside and said, but you know what you should do, reduce the number of ministers, reduce this, reduce that. But I was amazed that after interrogating, having these conversations, we could have made those savings. I would have expected this government to continue. I think they indicated that they were going to continue those conversations, but they've stalled. So it's really, really important. In fact, let me give you one further example. When we met with the FDA, for instance, they showed us how they were going to spend close to 19 million Ghana cedis on market surveillance, chase counterfeit goods. Then I said, look, a principal of my institution, Brett Simmons, and his colleagues have invented a technology that could help detect fake or counterfeit goods. So why don't you use that? Because I suspect that if you did that and worked with manufacturers of medicines, you could actually kick half that amount that you're going to spend on market surveillance. So there are all these bits and pieces out there in terms of what should be done that I suspect was the reason for this committee. And I, before accepting to be a member of the committee, had had conversations with my team, and we rationalized that, well, to the extent that this is not going to usurp the powers of the central bank and bring additional knowledge, and I told the finance minister, I think my domain will be market data. So that's the way we should speak, really. I'm comfortable to being on the committee. So, yeah, I mean, that's it, really.
That's it, okay. Thank you very much, Franklin Kujo. He said some insights into what he's been doing and what the committee will be doing.
Can I add 30 seconds?
No, you can't have 30 seconds. Time
30
is up.
seconds.
No, you
just
don't.
30 seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds is for my messages.
30 seconds. Agama Lizard. Let me just say something.
You find another way of doing your Agama when I return.
Okay.
Let me just read a couple of messages that have coming on this matter. Jones Adoboy says, FX committee indeed. Is it up President Kufuor who said he has the men? I remember that he also said he's in a hurry. Why do we need this committee? All the Bank of Ghana's will be. He should fix the problem. I'm waiting to hear Sydney's point. Or you've heard Sydney by now. Awudiye Bernard from Medina says, Godfred, the depreciation of the cedi has become a political game between the political parties. And I think that is the main reason why we are finding it difficult to tackle the issue of the cedi depreciation. I only hope and pray that the committee will come out with the best solutions to address the cedi depreciation. Owen Ernest in Adenta says this FX committee will yield nothing. It's a waste of our money. Selon from Pokwasa says the FX Management Committee will not achieve anything unless Africans stop the dollarization of their economies. We should stop receiving loans and grants in dollars and stop exporting in dollars. It is the demand of the dollar that influences the supply. Speaking of which, John Gachi has a very interesting research paper on the dollarization of economies. If you find time, you can find it and read it.
Is it on the
It's on Taylor and Francis. So if you can go on TNF online and read it. It's very interesting. And then finally, Nee from KNUST. Sydney Hayford would definitely say yes to the idea of the committee. Well, I'm sure you're surprised that he did not say yes. Nee from KNUST.
I fooled you.
Who thought he could predict Sydney Hayford? Okay, so we'll make some progress on the big issue and begin the conversation on the voters register. Now, it's good that Franklin is here, but I'll start this conversation from Reverend Intim Forger, Member of Parliament for Asin South constituency. Now, the EC seems determined to go through with this. In fact, nothing will change the EC's mind from where I sit on this matter. The groups that oppose the EC's decision to compile this new voters register continue to make their case. They are trying all sorts of avenues. Now we are hearing they might try the courts since they feel that demonstrations did not work. They even agreed to halt demonstrations for a while, but it looks like that also did not come through for them. So now they are saying, well, the EC is determined to do this. Let's just move on. Where can we draw the consensus on this particular matter so that everybody is happy and then we just move on? Because at the moment, so far as these groups are concerned, the EC is just being intransigent as they see it. From where the EC stands, they have the power according to the law, and they are doing just that.
Yeah, it is important that when institutions are mandated with some powers to do what is right, what they deem fit, and what they deem best for the country, they are given the needed ears and the needed support also to operate. It is also important that as institutions, in the exercise of their mandate, will have to also do consultations to engage stakeholders to ensure that a certain form of consensus is built. Now, the challenge is when you have an entrenched position and a prejudiced position on a particular direction that fundamentally you recognize that this is the right direction to go, trying to persuade or trying to engage is challenging. Now, let us all take a look at this. We have certain benchmarks and certain indicators that are set out to measure the health of every human being. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're of a certain height, and if you're of a certain weight, and if you're of a certain age, there are certain indicators that measure your health and how healthy you are. For instance, that's why we have the BMI index, that is why we have the sugar level, that is why we have cholesterol level, and certain levels based on your morphology. Much in the same way, in democratic governance, there are very useful indicators that measure how healthy is the democracy of a particular jurisdiction. And principal among those indicators is even the percentage of voters register, or the percentage of voters on the register as compared to the total population. And if it hovers within a certain unacceptable ranges, it goes to raise a red flag. That flags it out to tell that, look, there is a big problem with your register. Let me begin from there. Now, all across Sub-Saharan Africa, and even if you would want to broaden the contest even to the global stage, the healthy indicator for one's percentage of voters as a percentage, the population of voters as registered voters as a percentage of the population should be around 50%. Mm-hmm. I mean, highest 51%. And that is average. What is the percentage of our registered voters in comparison to the population? In excess of 57%. You have a population of about 13 million people, and you have in excess of 17 to 19 million registered voters, that tells you clearly at the outset there is something seriously wrong. That ratio and that unhealthy ratio was not detected today. The position of the NPP has not changed. It has been very consistent. At the very time that we detected that there are fundamentally flawed, integrity elements in our voters register, and there's a need to have a new register. We stated that position clearly, and in the run-up to the 2016 elections, and we expressed our positions quite clearly. And we all here were witnesses to the rather violent and very, very irresponsible attacks that were meted out to the people who protested, which led to, sadly, even a loss of life. All these are highly regrettable. But I'm glad that we've come fast forward to a regime where people and groups of people and important political actors have the freedom to protest, to state their position, and to state their interest, and protest, lawfully, like every other group did, albeit this time, the executive, which the police is a core part, protects them, gives them the space to do so, gives them the protection to do so, without harming anyone, without causing damage, without resulting in a loss of a life. And I think it's an improvement in our governance system. But let me also signal here that Ghanaians will not be deceived. We recall there was a time when the chamber debating, and there were all these very strong resistance and disagreement to the NIA registration, only for us to know that some of our colleagues on the other side are already taking their positions and registering. Some of this. So now the NDC is, to me, and for those who have...
Well, it's not just the NDC, let's be clear here.
Other political parties, those who have a very fair practical political appreciation, only know that it is an opportunity for them to test their strength, to mobilize their support, and in preparation, not only the run-up to the 2020 election, but to rally them so that when the registration begins, they will be the first to be at the polling stations registering. And Ghanaians are very much aware of that. Now again, when we come to even the cost element,
which
and
is
the cost
the big
implications, which for me is another problem, because is it just arising today? Before the new management of Electoral Commission took over, there was a contract that was just at the stage of being awarded to just the maintenance and sustenance of the current voters register, without having to change it, without having to conduct new registration, was hovering around $56 million, converted to Ghana cedis, in excess of 360 million cedis, just not for a new register. So if we are talking about cost implications, we're talking about a regime where the proposed, the actual expenditure of the maintenance of even the data center was hovering around $16 million. And in the cost of now having to raise a new center is hovering around $6 million. Now,
cost of
yes, absolutely.
I will sum $150 million.
I will sum it all up. And when you do the arithmetic, you realize that you ask yourself, okay, so we are not... hitherto, in the previous regime, in excess of 360 million cedis was going to be expended on just getting the old. That's the point. And frankly, let me land and make my point. You see,
let him speak. Let him speak.
I'm just looking at it. Let him finish.
Don't worry.
No,
everybody will have an opportunity to speak. Let him speak.
No, Franklin, I have nothing to gain to.
Reverend, don't worry.
Any inaccuracies.
Reverend, for your go on.
Yes, I speak to the facts.
I don't usually interject when
Yes, absolutely. I speak to the facts, and I speak to what is on record.
He's a Reverend Minister.
You can bring your propaganda, but not at this stage.
Let him go.
So now, these are the fundamental arguments that floor the costs element. Now, even granted that there are cost implications that should be looked at. Now, let us keep in focus here. I mean, if you are going to maintain an old register at 360 million cedis. Of course, if you're doing a new one, some costs will be incurred. But compare the cost of compiling a new register as opposed to the planned cost of maintaining the old register with all its flaws and with all its inaccuracies. I do not think CSOs, Imani, IFS, any of the CSOs in Ghana who have the democracy of Ghana at heart will endorse that we have detected that the very register that produces government is flawed, lacks integrity. Yet we should just allow it to run. Why do we run that? And in terms of the indicators and the statistics that I showed, I mentioned that you need to have a healthy ratio of voters register as against the population. Around 50-51%. We have in excess of 57%. In the local adage, we have a phenomenon we say your thigh, your calf is bigger than your thigh, which is highly improportional and not a phenomenon that anyone must endorse. We must correct it.
Okay.
It must be a
Hold
concern
on for me. I'll just take a quick break, and then when you return, I'll let you
it
wrap
must be a general concern for us all that
I need to take a
if
quick
we
break.
want to consolidate the democratic gains that we have had, the fundamental element and material which lacks integrity must be corrected. It must be corrected even yesterday.
Thank you very much, Reverend John Intim Fojo. The big issue, we'll take another break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the big issue conversation on the compilation of the voters register. You can keep sending your messages via WhatsApp. +233 549 986 996 +233 549 986 996 or +233 550 585 832. On Twitter at Citi973, hashtag is the big issue, and at East Sportsman with the same hashtag. So let me come to Franklin. I think Reverend summed up clearly. Okay.
I give my initial comment, so I'll come again.
Okay, then let me.
And then he will have the CSO's bite. Let me have the opposition's bite.
Okay, have the opposition's
Let me
bite.
opposition's bite. You see, the credit for Ghana being a peaceful country, having achieved a long record of change of governments and all that, is credit to both the NDC and the MPP as political parties. At every election,
And the Electoral Commission.
and at every election, there has been the need for us to come to the conclusion and the realization that one party has to come to a realization that we need to give way for the other party to come in, because that is the will of the people and it must be respected. And if we want to build a nation, there must be that understanding that at any given time, power emanates from the people. And so when the will of the people is spoken through the ballot box, you have to give way and allow the process to continue. And then at every time we take credit as a nation for being a stable democracy and all that. But we don't live in an island. We have countries that surround us that have been affected by perceptions that one party feels cheated at any given time at an election and then decides that it will protest in ways that are not, peaceful. Mm-hmm. So there's always an added responsibility to ensure that the playing field is fair. And as it always said, the fairness starts not at the polling station necessarily, but through the entire process, so that at the end of the day, you can conclude that the elections were credible, they were peaceful, and what? They were clean and fair. The NDC has raised, as the biggest opposition party, has raised a concern that prior to the 2016 election, the MPP was adamant. We had Dr. Baumia even holding a press conference. These are facts. that the register was bloated, had foreigners on it. They brought facial recognition technology that was trying to attempt to show that certain persons from other countries were I never intervened, were on our register and all. Yet still, that register produced President Nana Akufo-Addo as the president of this country. Fast track. We are in 2020. The NDC, the EC raises or brings up an argument. And the fact was that at an inter-party advisory committee meeting, there was an item that was listed as part of the agenda as any other business, the issue of a possibility of a new electoral register. Then the justification that was given was that the vendor of the EC had written a letter that there was the issue of the system having the potential of crashing and that key portions of it were almost expiring. I'm coming, please. I'm coming. So the NDC then decides that, or the NDC requests, another minority party request that give us a copy of the letter from the vendor that says that this is the position that you are espousing because you have summarized something to us. We want a copy of this letter.
So that is all your problem is.
I'm coming. Up to today, because the point is this: you see, the entire electoral system is a consultative system. Mm-hmm. All parties, we don't. The fact that you may disagree with the methodology does not mean that you cannot be part. Of course, there were issues of, this issue of RUPA. The NDC's position is that all citizens living everywhere should be given the opportunity to vote. The EC, from what we understand, is that they are going to do it for in countries where we have embassies. But the process of making the RUPA into law was a process that involved all the parties.
But this is a very different scenario you're painting from what this particular
the point I'm making is that
disagreement is over.
At all material times, the EC has always worked with IPAC, you understand, in taking serious and key decisions when it comes to the issue of the voters, because the voters register is at the heart of the electoral process. Mm-hmm. And so if you do something that one party and a major stakeholder as such perceives to be that you are attempting to, in a way, directly or indirectly, favor its.
I'm
coming. I'm talking about just the register. The issue of the register, and when it came to the Ghana card, we had these issues and challenges of persons not having access or ability to even register, and so there is the fear, for example, that you may, in some regions where we believe that it's our stronghold, make it difficult for our members or persons within that area to be able to register. And we've seen practical examples where people have to sleep at places before they're able to get access to it. Apart from the issue of cost.
But so we are saying that... Hold on, before I let you continue, all I'm saying is, these points that you are making,
yes,
I've listened to the inter-party resistance.
Yes.
They have not made these points
They've
that you are making.
They've made the point of cost.
It is cost.
No, it's not only cost. There are other points that when I'm saying that, listen, there are other reasons why. You see, in an election year, and I'm giving you, apart from cost, the perception that you may attempt to disenfranchise potential.
Has that been because you will not.
Someone registered
has been
with the Ghana card, as an example, there are persons in where we perceive to be our strongholds where they have not been able to register for their Ghana card. So we are saying that there is the likelihood that if you, and this is a very important, feature of the election. If you are not on the roll, you can't vote. And so we are not prepared as a major participant.
You're not prepared now.
No,
maybe next year.
At this particular time, to take the risk.
Reverend,
please.
Let him go. Let him go.
We are not prepared at this particular time to allow you to tinker with the current register by trying to. And so we are saying
What do you mean
we
to
are
allow?
we are going we are the biggest opposition party in this country. We are a major and key stakeholder in the election. You cannot run this election without our participation. And if you you see, the issue is this: you want a situation where an election, where an election will be held with as much of the temperature as down as possible.
No, but you're making a
point
that you want to pull out of the general election.
I never said we were going to pull out of the general election.
To take that decision.
What I said was that you have a system where you need all parties to give this country a stable outlook when it comes to an election. Where you have, and that's the point that we want to make very clear to Madam Chairperson. Independence of your Electoral Commission does not mean that you can ride roughshod over the parties that take part.
But that's not the case.
We are a stakeholder, and not just a stakeholder.
Reverend,
are a major stakeholder.
I'll leave the questions to me.
We are a major stakeholder in this election, and we are telling you that we have concerns. The Eminent Advisory Committee says it's meeting on the 30th.
Yes.
We have given a lot of regard to that meeting because we thought that that meeting would have been an opportunity for us to present our position in respect of IPAC, because that is what that meeting is supposed to do. It's supposed to engage IPAC and get IPAC's concerns together with the EC. Then we get this graphic publication that the register is going to start in April, trying to preempt the outcome of that meeting with IPAC and making it look like it's a done deal because at the end of the meeting, the decision has already been taken.
But if you listen to Eyewitness News yesterday, Mr. Kwaku was very clear. He says we are going to engage
Mr.
you,
Kwaku is
but
not.
we
Mr.
are going
Kwaku
to do what we are going to do.
Is not the Electoral Commissioner. I'm saying that
but
the electoral please,
I'll get back to you.
Please,
I'll get back to you.
Let me
wants to dictate for the EC.
We want the Electoral Commission. We want the Electoral Commission. If you listen to us, he's been battering.
It doesn't matter.
So he's been trying to take away my time to speak, and I'm going to make my point.
You spent the first 5 minutes of your time recounting.
Because there must be history. You need to lay
let him speak with what everybody said.
You and I have that. But he and I don't have that because I normally let you speak. So
go on.
You should allow me to make my point.
Hurry up. I don't know where
my
you're
point
going
is
with all
this: that at the end of the day, there's going to be a meeting. It would have been advisable for the EC, which had formed this eminent advisory group, which it itself had anticipated that there may be issues which would need some eminent persons to always intervene and smoothing things over and ensure that there's a middle ground. They allow the eminent persons to get that middle ground so that all parties will be satisfied that moving forward, whatever decision in respect of the register will be one that is acceptable to all parties, or we raise the temperature with respect to the demonstrations and let the EC understand that power emanates from the people. If we are not going to be taken seriously, then they would realize that we are a major stakeholder in these elections.
Thank you very much. Nipa Posa Moado, a member of the NDC, stating his party's position, although a few parts of it are quite new. Let me go to Franklin. Now, Franklin, you come from the CSO side, and you've been looking at the cost factor in all this. No. The cost factor in all this and the engagements in all this. This week, you even called into the Citi Breakfast Show to engage the person who is consulting for the EC on this whole process.
Consultant.
Yes. What?
Well, a self-interest consultant, because in his earlier life, he's worked with one of the vendors.
That is unfair.
No, but that's
that
been
is
proven. I mean,
you don't have documents to that end here. So leave it at that. He is the consultant.
Okay,
that
well,
the EC has.
You see, in analysis, you do vested interest analysis.
And I know you love your vested interest analysis, but let's be fair
That's
to him
where all
here.
the shenanigans sit, actually.
Yes.
But let's leave that.
You are still not... The EC seems to have heard you, but said, yeah, we are still going on with
Well,
this?
first of all, let me address that particular interview, because the reason why I called into the show was because the gentleman was peddling falsehoods. You see, when we had made the value for money analysis and considered that if the EC had looked at comparator countries which had delivered elections with biometric verification machines, they wouldn't come to that cost of $3,500. And then he said, well, he doesn't know what we were relying on, and that the figures we gave were just for a component of the biometric verification machines, which was totally untrue. So I needed to call in to correct that. Let me just say that, look, the conversations about the consultative processes in itself may not be our forte, because we are not, those are the political posturing. But it is also important that the EC should be seen to be quite consultative. You don't want to consult people on a decision you've already predetermined. And they took the decision as far back as April 2019 to purchase this new software, verification machines and all of that. So I can understand the howlings coming from the opposition camp. It's even more worrying that they set up their own advisory committee of eminent persons that has actually detected that consultation should be done. And then they say, well, listen, whether you like it or not, I'm constitutionally clothed to deliver elections, and it will be at my sole prerogative to decide so. I want to say that without making legal arguments, I think this whole conversation about being clothed constitutionally to deliver an election is a bit quite annoying, because the fact of the matter is that you can't deliver an election when the parties to the election themselves are not satisfied. It's like saying that you are playing football and the referee decides that he or she would act in a manner that is not in line with fair play. In fact, on top of that, that's why there's even VAR. Because there's an assumption now in football. It's no longer an assumption, actually. It's the reality that some of the calls referees made, they may be fair intended, but of course, it's human error. Of course, there are errors to happen. I'm trying to draw some of these analogies. The football analogy. So it is important to do that. Look, this conversation has never been about the bloater register. The justifications by the EC were based on very inaccurate, flimsy argument. One of them that started was that, well, listen, we have a voter roll that contains close to 14 million voters who have been earlier biometrically verified and registered.
14 million.
Yes. Good.
Yeah, but
can I? But because 34,000 out of 14 million potentially will be manually verified, not denied the ability to vote, because of that, we are going to replace an entire system that is that's going to deliver this election. That's one of the strong arguments put forward by the Deputy Commissioner on Bernard's show, the point of view. And Bernard asked him, as a political scientist, do you really think, without even doing proper mathematics, that 34,000, which is 0.6% of the entire voter database, which would not be denied, but manually verified, because at some point, well, the machine may have issues. And so you want to do that. He couldn't advance any proper justification. He didn't. Now, we then try to look at the expenditure pattern of the EC. In fact, the EC's own mandates, not just mandates, but by their conduct since 2016, have been to upgrade the existing systems. In fact, since 2016, they spent $40 million in upgrading the systems, which managed to deliver the elections as recently as what? Last month, right? So all we are saying is that there are 7 components of these biometric system. You cannot tell us that all of a sudden, the cameras, the laptops, the data itself, the biometric data itself, the biometric verification machines, the biometric recording machines, BVRs and BVDs, the data center, the transmission infrastructure of this information, and the administrative aspect, which are EC officers who sit in all these offices, all of a sudden, all of this is completely annihilated, expired. And so because of that, you want to throw away an investment that you've made close to $60 million, because if you add the 40 million plus all these other that I've mentioned, comes to $60 million. Ditch all of that and go for a completely new set of things.
Why is it so hard to believe?
Oh, but you let me land, please. Ditch all of that and completely go for a new system costing $150 million, if you look at it carefully. And we are saying that, look, comparator countries are available. What is it that you are going to procure, which you procured in the dead of night, by the way, for you to come and justify the throwing away of critical investment made by you on our behalf, and then go and procure a new, system?
You have the power.
Because you have the power. But I can understand. You know that. Can you
I'll let
please?
you go. Don't worry.
You see,
But I must engage you.
in the principles of the tragedy of the commons, what belongs to you, you tend to take care of. What belongs to others tend to fall into disrepair, right? If it were your money, would you use it that way? You wouldn't do that. So the system, an authentication of the system, an audit of the system, which has been done, which continuously get done, has cost us close to, and that's maybe what some of the figures Reverend is throwing about. Most of the figures they throw about sometimes, like the EC stuff, are phantom figures. Wait, I know, but they are based on EC, and we are telling you that some of the figures. Can I land? Some of the figures themselves.
You brought him in, so you have to allow him.
In the process of awarding the contract, I didn't engage.
Yeah, but that's exactly what we are saying.
So
these are publishable figures.
Absolutely.
But they've also been lying. Let me use the word. When they throw out a figure like $85 million, which $85 million, we spent $85 million on limited registration. That's totally untrue. In 2010, it was $10.5 million. In fact, in 2014, it was less than $20 million.
What are the basis of these numbers?
But the numbers are all there for their own records. You know, sometimes when we speak, it's as if we are conjuring these numbers. I recall not long ago, my vice president was on the show with the deputy education minister, and he was quoting figures on the website of the Ministry of Education. And the man didn't know that their own figures were the ones being used. We don't churn out figures. We don't conjure figures. We are doing value for money analysis. And we are saying that the basis, especially when it comes to money, on which the EC is trying to say that they need a new voter roll, is not sound, based on their own figures, that we've been spending money to upgrade the system. In fact, it's based on their own operational mandate that they have to continuously upgrade. Take for instance, look at this analogy. A bank has many branches. Most of the components of these branches are manufactured by different companies. Someone may spill tea on a laptop. The BVR could even get missing. Does it mean that the whole banking structure, the branches, should be raised to the ground and created new ones? If I take an example like the passport, the data that we have. Since 2010, we've had biometric data collected. When your passport expires, you just go. I did mine not too long ago. I just called in. They had all my data, and then they gave me a new one. Are you suggesting that so the passport office will say, well, because you already have your data, let's have new ones? It can only happen when you are a minor, and after maybe 8 years, your features have changed, which happened in one of my kids' case. They said, no, well, the features have changed when he was age 2 or 3. So now, because it's 10, let's have a new device, the biometric device. But I didn't have to go through that. The passport office didn't have to completely go and procure new systems to come and collect my data.
But in response
those
to
are
that,
the arguments we are making.
to that, the IT consultant, Dr. Safoje, who was here,
yes, please,
makes the point that the tech is proprietary, for instance.
When you say proprietary, explain. Because you see, they use all kinds of terminologies
he's saying
to
that the
bamboozle
company
people.
they procured it from initially owns the rights to the tech that is currently available. That tech cannot be passed on to another company because it is owned by this company.
We are saying two things. Listen, we are saying that what you procured, you've been continuously upgrading with even that vendor. To
No, they are saying that
wait. Are they telling you that while they have been updating the machines they bought and spending money as recently as 2018, all of a sudden in 2019, they cannot continue to do that because of proprietary, and because of that, they want to ditch all of that they've been spending
they are saying
money.
that the cost of doing that is too high. And
Which
so
is what
they
is
would
high?
rather spend
What
it
is high?
on
Which
tech.
part of the money? Which part of the component is really high? Which is it? The continuous improvement you've been doing as early as 2018, which managed to deliver 4 elections since 2016, and as recently as December 2019, you are upgrading these machines anyway. So because there's going to be another election, all of a sudden there's a nebulous figure that has been thrown about, which we never know, which we've never authenticated,
Let's wrap up, Franklin.
except a vendor who has advised them based on predetermined values, by the way. So we are just saying that, look, we sit in the arena of value for money because they brought the conversation up. You see, we conflate too many issues in this country. All of a sudden, my good friend Sydney says, well, you need to go into the register because there are minors and all. Fact of the matter, the bloated register, however, even if that is the case, has not been tabled by the managers of the elections as the reason for this. They've been confusing and confounding everybody by their own commentary, right? And that is what is worrying. That's the only reason why we are saying that let's engage in this conversation properly. You cannot be investing people's money into a system which you used to deliver 4 elections as recently as 2019, and all of a sudden you say that all the processes I've mentioned, the 7 processes, all of them are completely dead. And that because they cannot manually, electronically verify, only 34,000 people. You want to ditch $60 million worth of investment to go and procure $150 million worth of new data. I mean, new infrastructure. Why would you want to do something like this? If it were your money, you wouldn't use it that way. That was the argument we are making. That's all.
You said you have 3 major statements.
3 major statements.
But I'll just make it a quick one.
The
first one, I do not attempt to speak for the EC, but I attempt to suggest that there's that financial imprudence in the...
Oh, it's not a suggestion of imprudence. It's by their own analysis.
Money. It's incorrect, and that must be...
But it's incorrect. Can I give you...
Can I give you...
But you say...
Hold on.
No, let me interject. Let's deal with this.
You calm down.
No,
I will do the interjection.
It's good to... Wait. Reverend, you are a peacemaker.
Makes the point that...
Can I...
But
Reverend, you are a peacemaker.
Yeah, that's
I want to dislodge the argument immediately before you go ahead.
But you have the chance to do that, I suppose. But Franklin makes the point that for the fact that you're going into an election and one political party says they are not satisfied.
I've never said so.
No, you said you stated that.
I never said that because one political party is not satisfied.
Yes, you mentioned.
No,
the fact that I did not interject you, perhaps I should have interjected you right there.
I didn't say
you're
that.
going into an election and one political party says they are dissatisfied with the process. You don't ignore them and go ahead.
Well, he hasn't said that. That is only
he mentioned that.
He has not said that.
Viewers and listeners are my witnesses.
No,
but again, let me remind you. I am not suggesting. I am not suggesting.
Your final point.
EC at the time went even as fundamental, needless actions as a new logo. And major, actors raised concerns, and they were not happy with it. They still went ahead and did it. In 20, no, I'm not. I'm saying I am not saying major political party relishes the position of major opposition party, a position they will relish for a very long time. Probably he's very proud about that. But you see, in the run up to the 2016 election. How many reservations did we raise? And when EC disagreed with us, what did we do? We went into an election. And the fact that we won with a faulty voters register does not change the need to fix the faulty voters register. And is Franklin disputing the fundamental fact that...
No, Franklin has not disputed that. Franklin is simply saying that the end-to-end change that they are suggesting
you are having
is inaccurate.
57% of your population on your voters register. It is... So let us address these facts.
Let me quickly rebut.
Then I go to Sydney.
First of all,
patiently waiting for his turn.
First of all, I've never said In fact, the EC has never said that the register is bloated, and that's the reason why they want to conduct a new one. These are your words. I've also never said but the EC.
I'm saying you cannot speak for the EC.
That's why I made it.
Reverend, you cannot speak for the EC.
Oh, please.
The EC has said that the register is a credible register.
Reverend, you cannot speak for the EC.
I didn't say I'm speaking.
The second point.
I'm saying the EC's position on this is very clear and public.
The second point I need to make quickly
We
is
all
that
can state our opinions about the health of major elements that have something to do with the integrity of our elections.
in debate there's
Finish
something
one.
called a jaded trick. I've never said that because one party objects. All I said was that, and then that was even an advocacy argument. I said, look, the EC needs to cast its image in a very consultative manner.
Yes.
They cannot say we want to consult, create bodies that would help in mediation.
And not consult.
And not consult. The other point I need to make emphatically clear about the cost comparators is that, look, we gave figures from other jurisdictions. Nigeria delivered its election with these biometric devices, and the entire system cost $1,442. You are doing yours at $3,500, and we're asking you, where are you getting those machines from? Where are you procuring those machines? You've never shown it. The RFQs were never displayed. Nobody knows where you are procuring this from. The DRC, far more populous, delivered its election with $2,500 because you can understand, well, because of the populations and maybe the things, and DRC is quite corrupt, by the way. So you can allow a margin of corruption. Kenya, which is supposed to be even corrupt more than Ghana, delivered its election costing less than $1,000. Benin, $2,000. Zimbabwe, which is also obviously very corrupt as well, delivered its elections recently as $2,000. So the margin of corruption for all these countries that beat us at corruption haven't even been fair. Why are you procuring something $3,500? And we are saying, show us the vendor. And yet you tell us that, maybe they procured iPhone or they procured Samsung when the system is Android. Well, for Samsung.
Points made. Citi is here for gentlemen.
Just one.
No, you don't have a minute.
You know, I've never spoken in such.
I know. That is why I'm allowing you to go on.
Because I don't like the way people.
Leopold will end this conversation because I need to talk about
questions. We know his position already.
No, let me just read a few messages. Let me take a few messages and then we move on. Abdul Bassett from Kumasi says the voters register is a must. We need a credible, transparent, and clean new biometric register and verification machine now for all of us to accept the results of election 2020. I am not, Nunu in Chakrade says, I am not enthused with the decision by the EC to compile a new voters register. But if the EC is of that view, if the EC is of the view that decision is going to make the election free and fair, then I wish them well. To add to that, corruption will continue to exist if the leaders and the citizens are not willing and ready to fight against corruption. Walanyo in Akwetia says, why is the NDC against the new voters register? The Council of Elders in the NDC should be up to the task and tell their members that the demonstration is nothing but a waste of resources. The date for the compilation of the new voters register is out, and would they humbly accept the call or advise their faithful followers not to participate in the registration? And finally, Mashoud from Abele Mpe Accra says the integrity and independence of the Electoral Commission has been compromised. Sydney Casely Hayford, have you been convinced this week by either side?
I've been convinced, actually by me.
Honestly, I have had enough
of the EC and their friends
of all this thing. We are the beginning of the year of an election year. I have two pieces of advice, one for the EC and the other for NDC. To the EC, my advice is simple. Plow ahead. Your mandate is very clear. You are supposed to deliver credible election results at the end of every election and make sure that we don't have upheaval and disruption of the country. If you have decided that the best way to deliver that is by compiling a new voters register,
400 million.
It doesn't matter how much it's going to cost us. Our our salvation in ensuring that we don't have any political dissension after voting should not have a financial cap on it. If they've submitted what they need to be able to deliver this to Parliament, be it 441, be it 419, be it whatever, and Parliament has accepted and agreed that you should go ahead, any noise that the CSOs do and any supposed value for money analysis which they believe they have done is good for conversation in the media space. And they've promoted it. Fine. But just go ahead and do what you're supposed to do. What we need is a decisive decision of how we are moving forward. If the need is to scrap the old register for whatever reason, I believe the register is completely bloated. Last week we discussed it, back of the envelope calculations that I did, and I've intensified and gone deeper to look at the analysis, region by region.
Can I interject a little bit?
And he just started. You can't interject now.
On the bloated nature of the register, because he made some numbers. If you compare data across countries that have done elections, in Kenya, for instance, if you look at the populations, it is actually at par. You can have a 42 million population, and the register will be about 17, 18 million. In fact, in some other countries...
50%.
No.
But I was
no.
55%.
No. I'll pull that data short.
Then pull it and
That
before you
data
come
should
out. Pull your
mean-
data. Be
so-
certain
yeah,
of pull your
because
data.
I
Till
know-
then, Sydney has the floor.
Okay.
Sydney.
I'm convinced. I don't look at Kenya population. I don't look at South Africa population. I don't know the peculiarities of their demography. I haven't really delved into it. I know Ghana. I've looked at Ghana. I've done the analysis historically. And as far as I'm concerned, just simply looking at it the way I looked at it last week, population of people who are 18 and over to vote is not more than 30% of our population. I look at it that way. We cannot have a voter register in anywhere in excess of 11 million voters. Impossible. And I say, clean it out. Give us a new ground to look at things.
So if the
we
cleaning is done and the numbers don't meet your expectations, what do you do?
then that's what they are. All right? Because what I have done is to look at it from a bigger perspective. Call it a macro perspective. If you do
Since when have you held this particular...
for a long time. Ever since we've been voting. From the very beginning, from 92 throughout. If you look at it, you will see. And look, let's not as Ghanaians play the ostrich. We all know both the NPP and the NDC have consistently padded that voters register to their advantage. Whichever way they can do it, they have done it. So we have ended up with a situation here now where we have to make a decisive decision, all right, and get a clean voter register. Unless
And
the
you think they will sit back
NDC,
and let it be clean?
unless the NDC, all right,
who doesn't
unless
want
the
a clean
NDC can
register?
come and
The
say,
MPP and NDC.
We want a clean register. That's why we are calling for a
Let me
new
give
one.
you some figures.
So if NDC doesn't
unless,
want a clean
look,
register,
Franklin, no,
Franklin,
please.
you hold on. Franklin, hold on. I'll let you come back.
Unless the NDC, all right, can come and give us proof that at the end of the day, a new clean voter register will disadvantage them in the voting. There's nothing to worry about.
Okay.
We have to get that clear and move on. So that's my advice to the EC.
Okay.
Get on with it, move on with it, and don't be distracted by all these shenanigans that are going on.
Okay. Thank you very much.
My advice to the NDC, very simple.
Oh, okay.
The old style politics that they are doing, which is to just deliberately be disruptive, calling demonstrations, yelling aluta, shedding blood, killing people here and there, and threatening that you're going to cause mayhem in the country, is only going forward in the international circles to disrupt our political stability and create the impression that we are not a country that is serious. They have to stop it. It's not going to get them anywhere. These demonstrations that they are organizing around, they are supposed to have spent about 970-something thousand cedis on the demonstration on the demonstration in the northern region. I don't agree with that figure. I think it's a ridiculous number. And I think it's just creating the impression that all of this is a waste of money. I'm not going to bother about that. No. However, if the NDC, all right, seriously believe that they will be disadvantaged if a new register is set up. As for the financial issues, that's a government matter. You know, government's reputation and whether people accept that they are wasting our taxpayers' money or not, it's entirely up to them to take the risk as a political party. If they've approved it and the people of this country feel they have thrown money away, they will vote them out. And that is not for the CSOs to determine.
Is that what CSOs do?
No. You see, CSOs, the majority
considering you are a member of a CSO that went to court to compel an auditor general and what was to do his job to save money.
Yes, I gave the auditor general power, all right, or we gave the auditor general power as the Occupy Ghana to go and do what they are constitutionally obligated to do.
And it also involves verifying procurement processes as well. The Auditor General does that.
Yeah. Yes. And that's what we did. I didn't go there to go and tell the Auditor General that he's wasting money.
Because you realized money was being wasted.
Money was being wasted.
And money was being wasted and had been wasted. And all we did was to give them what they already had. But that's not the point of the argument. The point of the argument is that if the NDC, at the end of the day, feel very strongly that this is a waste of money, one, this is going to destroy their opportunity to be able to get a fair shake of the elections. If they feel that there is something that the MPP is going to insert or interject into the software that is going to make them lose the election at the end of the day, I beg you, that is enough grounds to boycott the voting. They should boycott it, leave us alone, so we can get on with being the largest opposition
party.
Time is up for both
of
you.
No, he fears that
time is up for both of you.
The minus they put in and the people who didn't qualify to be on that they put in that makes it incredible that the new register will eliminate is what they fear. So that goes to it's a confirmation of a concession. And he made a point that they fear that even when the new register is open, in some areas, we will prevent their people from registering. The EC. Has there been any incident where an EC has prevented somebody from registering because you are NDC? Did you go there with NDC ID cards to register? Do you register with ID? So whatever it is that the NDC has put into the incredible register that we have to remove to make it credible that they are afraid of.
You said the demonstrations don't worry you.
Gentlemen,
said you are concerned about the demonstrations.
Gentlemen, Sydney needs to
when the new register starts, I want to move on.
Gentlemen, I want to move on. I am moving on.
Don't waste money.
I am moving on. Sydney, you've made your point. You don't need to repeat it. You don't need to repeat it for anybody. Point is made.
We will not give you that pleasure.
I want it on headline news.
From the Economist.
Then I can get
the national population of Ghana is about 28 million. The voter population is a little over 15 million. It's 56% if you look at it.
It's impossible.
India is 1.2 billion. The voter population is 814 million. That's 65%. The UK, 64 million national population. Voter population is 46 million. That's 72%. Argentina, 41 million. The voter population is 32 million. It's 77%.
Don't mislead us, Frank.
I'm not misleading you. Indonesia,
you have
252 million. The voter population is 190. I'll show it to you. It's 75%. Brazil.
The average is 51%.
That's why you are doing 56%.
Okay, so we move on.
Brazil, 200 million. Voter population is 142 million. 71%.
Okay.
So the argument that
points made. Franklin, you can share your data with them.
So why is
Gentlemen,
I speak only with data.
let me
That's all I'm
speak.
trying to
Let
do.
me speak to some other data. Reverend,
The EC has not said the voter is voted. So why are you having
Yes.
this argument?
I am going there.
speak for the EC. So if
Reverend,
EC has not
Reverend,
said
but the EC has not-
strongly, there's a
Reverend,
cogent
we are
and
talking
tenable
about the
reason why
But
we
the
need
EC
to
has not
register.
said the voter.
Mr.
But
Kujo,
I don't speak for the
Reverend.
EC. So if
So why
the
Franklin,
Franklin
Reverend,
identifies
It's okay.
The EC did not say that because they know from the data.
Gentlemen,
We need to talk about how corrupt your government is.
let's talk about the Transparency International Index that has
And how
come
corrupt the
through.
government is.
That we'll spend the last
You already have
quarter of our
reputation.
conversation. And that conversation
No,
reserved
compete
only
with
for
you on
Toma.
that.
Oh,
Yes, because it says voters registration is for you.
Thomas, you give me a little time to interject.
No.
You
So-
have plenty of time. You have made
I'm looking at the
NDCC
data
like-
now, and I'm looking at the document from the Ghana Integrity Initiative, and this says
the best, worst performance. under
Ghana
the NDC. Just wanted
Ghana
you to do
scored
the
41 out of a possible
statistics.
clean score of 100 in the CPI 2019 and ranked 80 out of 180 countries, territories included in this year's index. This year's score of 41 shows that Ghana's score remained the same compared to its CPI score of 2018. Ghana performed better than 37 other sub-Saharan African countries, including Burkina Faso, Lesotho, Ethiopia, Gambia, Tanzania, and performed below 9 others. So if you look at the countries above the CPI scores, Seychelles is top, Botswana, Cabo Verde, Rwanda, Mauritius, Namibia, Sao Tome and Principe, Senegal, South Africa, Benin, and then Ghana. Below Ghana, you have Burkina Faso, Lesotho, Ethiopia, Gambia, and Tanzania. In 2019, while Ghana performed better than Burkina Faso and Lesotho, Ghana could not catch up with countries like South Africa, Senegal, Sao Tome and Principe, etc. that scored better than Ghana in 2018. Now, according to the statement, what needs to be done, and I'm going to go to that quickly so that Toma can start. Government must take a critical look at elements that promote public sector corruption, including patronage, clientelism, nepotism, and suspiciously close ties between politics and business. 2, government should enforce sanctions against vote buying, abuse of incumbency, and threats to voters in order to ensure 2020 elections are held in a fair and transparent environment. 3, political parties must demonstrate a high sense of integrity and transparency in all their campaign finances to avoid the snares of political entrepreneurs. 4, the Electoral Commission should enforce Sections 13 and 14 of the Political Parties Act, which deal with declaration of assets and expenditure by political parties. And 5, civil society organizations, including the media, must offer equal opportunities for espousing ideas, programs, and plans, and create platforms to hold duty bearers accountable. Toma, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I know we don't have much time, but the truth is this. First of all, before my 2 brothers here, the politicians, start getting at each other's truth over this issue, we should remember one thing. This is...
You have 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Toma.
this is a survey of perception of corruption as different from incidents of corruption. All right? Now, what happens is that as each society, becomes aware of corruption and that, it works against that country's results. Let me give you a simple example. If Ghana and Nigeria have exactly the same, publicly identified levels of corruption, and you do this exercise in Ghana, and you do it in Nigeria, Ghana would probably end up having a worse score than Nigeria, because there are certain levels of incidents of corruption in Nigeria which Nigerian society has come to accept as part of everyday life. While in Ghana we are far more
Robust.
sensitive and robust to corruption. All right? So we should keep that in mind when we are looking at the scores. To me, the scores is not the issue really, but what the suggestions made are spot on. I mean, these are just spot on. These are all things that Ghana needs to work towards. We are guilty. We have shortcomings in all those aspects. The question is, are we really going to work on them in a system that not only is highly politicized, but rewards being politicized, so to say, among the political elite who can implement these things? There are rewards some of the rewards of being a political elite, especially when in power, are the very things that Ghana Transparent Integrity Initiative is calling for us to correct. So it becomes very difficult to try to correct that. Even when you try to take these things on, you are politically labeled. We know how it is in the media, for instance. All right. So yes, we direly need these things, but our society has become so structured that it is difficult to fight them, because the people best positioned to implement them are the ones benefiting from these things in the first place. As for the survey itself, as I said, it is a survey of perceptions as different from incidents. So the use of it is very, very limited.
Yes.
It's very, very, very limited.
Okay.
You can't go around and say, oh, because I scored better than you, that means that I'm less corrupt than you. All it means that at that particular time, the people who were assessed and who their perception of the level of corruption was. So basically, what it even means is that if you have a government that is very corrupt, is able to control the media and the publicization of corrupt these things, that means you're going to score high. And if you are a government that is not corrupt, but you cannot control the media, the opposition has a better rapport with the media than you might end up being rated corrupt, because what's going to start in the public, which influences perceptions, will work against you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tim. Let me take a couple of messages. Franklin. No, time is up. Yeah. Please tell Franklin that when you procure,
you got yourself
the rest is for my listeners and viewers.
You overfed yourself.
Gentlemen, please tell Franklin that when you procure proprietary software and the hardware is obsolete, you have no choice other than to procure an entire new system. He does not seem to understand that. This is Felix, who is an IT auditor, he says.
I've not said all the hardware. They are saying all the hardware is also obsolete.
Okay. Hello, Godfred. Good morning to you and your distinguished panelists. Now, regarding this new voter register issue, I think the EC has to calm down and try to come to a consensus with all aggrieved political parties. The position of the NPP in backing the EC on this issue is alarming, because for me, I feel there is something hidden under the carpet. We are in this country and we've been told that we don't have money. So why do they want to waste such a huge amount of money for just 34,000 people or so who can easily verify it manually without a problem? Godfred, politicians are only interested in projects that will keep them in power. 34 people died on a road, and none of them is thinking about dualizing our road. But voting in 440 million Ghana cedis for a new register is what they are interested in. I am done with this country. Charles in Legon.
$360 million cedis anyway, in just maintaining the old one.
Let's see. So,
absolutely, that's going to be done.
Nukunu Foga on Twitter says Sydney is misleading listeners on the voters register. Bloated by who? Ghost or what? Sydney should know that ghosts cannot be verified. So, on that note, we will end this edition of The Big Issue. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. A big thank you to Reverend Itim Fojo, to Toma Amehia, Franklin Kujo, Sydney Kesley Hayford, and Nick Pakpo, Samoa Ado. Have a good weekend.